Thank you very much. Sorry, Dr. Fuller, you are next. Okay. And good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here in this wonderful city. And I hope you enjoy my presentation as we have enjoyed making this study. So, teledermatology in our area was launched to improve the accessibility to skin cancer clinics, avoiding the referral of patients with benign lesions to in-person consultations. However, this point hasn't meant a less number of consultations. On the contrary, there has been a continuous rise in the patients attended through teleconsultations, as it is shown in this graphic, in this 10-year period of experience graphic. So the aim of our study was to analyze the trends in the frequency of certain sort of lesions and whether these trend lines were associated with an improvement in the early skin cancer diagnosis. With these aims, we performed a cross-sectional study over a 7-year period. Patients having any concerning lesions were enrolled by primary care centers pertaining to our teledermatology network. After ruling out the exclusion criteria usually applied in our routine practice. We recorded the year of consultation, the remote diagnosis, and the T-stage in case of malignant melanoma. Diagnoses were categorized as malignant melanoma, distinguishing between the thin malignant melanoma and the T2, T4 malignant melanoma. Of non-melanoma skin cancer, where we include the basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and other malignant lesions. The precancerous lesions, including the actinic keratosis, actinic cheilitis, and field cancerization, melanocytic nevi, and seborrheic keratosis. We also considered the malignant melanoma and non-melanoma skin cancer as a category named malignant lesions, and we grouped together the precancerous lesions and the cancerous lesions in a category named relevant lesions. Outcomes measures assessed were the crude number and the percentage of each lesion type diagnosis throughout the study period. And we also calculate the pickup ratios for each category. So the results over the study period, roughly 35,000 patients were enrolled. Seborrheic keratosis were the most frequent lesion type, followed by the melanocytic nevi. This chart depicts the relative frequencies of each category and also showed the pickup ratios for each category. The ratio for malignant melanoma was 1 out of 78.78, which is a high figure, but the figure was lower when we calculated it for the malignant lesion, and it was even lower when we calculated it for any relevant lesions, 1 out of 4. Here we show the trend lines in the raw numbers for each category, and we can see that over the study period, every lesion showed an increase in the raw numbers, but the relative frequencies didn't show this behavior. It's remarkable the increasing frequency of seborrheic keratosis, which is the lesion that usually raises diagnostic troubles with malignant melanoma. And the thin malignant melanoma and the precancerous lesions also showed an increasing relative frequency. However, the melanocytic nevi showed a decreased frequency, and that might be explained because since 2011, patients with multiple pigmented lesions were ruled out from teleconsultations as this condition became an exclusion criterion. So in our communication, we discussed that an effective skin cancer screening system may display which lesions patients are seeking care for. In our study, we saw an increasing frequency of benign lesions, but also we had an increasing diagnosis of thin malignant melanoma and precancerous lesions. So we consider that the increasing of benign lesions diagnosis may be a consequence to achieve an early detection of any relevant lesion. Likewise, the rise of benign lesions through teleconsultations should not be considered as a system failure, because teledermatology allows a better and efficient management of these lesions as less patients are referred to an in-person consultation. For example, and I propose an easy brain game for the audience. We diagnosed up to 8,238 patients with seborrheic keratosis. In our dermatology unit, we reserved 10 minutes for every consultation, for the first visit for a patient. So how much time would we have used if 8,238 patients had come to our unit? With teledermatology, only 697 patients were referred. So there's a lot of time. And every teleconsultation for the teledermatologist is less than, the teledermatologist spends less than 1 minute to diagnose, in this case, a seborrheic keratosis. So it's a lot of time, it's a lot of saving time. We also, in our study, increasing frequency of thin malignant melanoma, which had been shown before by other epidemiological studies. And this might be explained because of the, as a long-term effect of the availability of fast-track referral system as teledermatology is. We also saw an increasing frequency of precancerous lesions that obviously came with a decreased frequency of the non-melanoma skin cancer. Our study has one strong point, very stronger, that we had no loss data, because the variables we recorded were mandatory for the teledermatology system to work. On the other hand, our study is limited by the retrospective nature of the series, and even though we had roughly 35,000 patients in our study, all the patients came from only a single institution. So to sum up, teledermatology allows a better and efficient management of lesions and improves the accessibility to the dermatologist. So that provoked that more consultations for lesions that were irrelevant for the patient before. And we have seen this phenomenon above all with lesions that raises concerns with the diagnosis of malignant melanoma, in our case with seborrheic keratosis. So we suggest that the increase in frequency of benign lesions in a teledermatology network may be a collateral and necessary consequence for the early diagnosis of skin cancer. And thank you for your attention.